Hello. Hope you're all well today. I'm kind of sweaty. um, but yesterday, after I had literally right after I did this reading, I'm waiting for my mouth to catch up. Okay, it's kind of there. It's kind of there. We're almost there. Um, one of my friends at UCLA was like, "Hey, do you want to work on my thesis?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, what do you mean you're working on your thesis?" Because I've just been like on fire and unable to work on it. And so I sat down and in like an hour and a half wrote this like panic draft of a thesis, and then like sent it to my friend, and I think it's actually pretty good. So I just got off a call with her. She's an incredibly talented producer. Um, and I'm like, I think this could happen. So I'm feeling a little spark of hope, which I'm sure will be crushed by something. It's coming. I don't know what it is, but it's gonna hit me. But yeah, I'm feeling hopeful today. I'm feeling like there's a light. Again, I have my fan going at Mach force because it is extremely hot in San Diego. I also have a movie recommendation. I was experiencing, I think, okay, so here's the weird thing. Here's the tea about the San Diego blackout. That was not San Diego. It was just a little chunk of Rancho Penasquitos. So I'm waiting to catch up. My family has been getting letters and calls from SDG&E for the past couple of weeks, telling us that there was going to be a planned blackout Monday, July 13th, from 8:30, starting anywhere from 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. And last night, Sunday, July 12th, the blackout started at 9:30 p.m. So knowing nothing about electricity, knowing nothing about SDG&E, I think that somebody read it wrong and was like, all right, take that. And then someone was like, Marv, why is Rancho Penasquitos dark right now? And he's like, you guys told me to do it. Because they came this morning and at exactly 9:30 a.m., they turned off the power again, but it was only for 15 minutes this time. And it was like for 45 minutes last night. It just seems like too much of a coincidence and too local of an occurrence for it not to be related. That's my take on the matter, because the breaker that they replaced is literally right outside my house. So they had all this like crazy equipment. So that is the tea on the SDG&E blackout. Look out, SDG&E. Classic literature bloggers are coming for you. I agree. I think it's way too related to not be related, you know? That's that on that. I keep losing people. People come in for my conspiracy theories. Oh, I was going to give you a movie recommendation. So I did a extremely gay double feature last night. It was wonderful. I watched, now please everybody hold your breath for what this movie is. It's a French film made in the 1950s by a woman that's about like lesbians. What a combo. What? Like, nobody tells you about this in film school. It's like, why are we learning about Alfred Hitchcock? I don't care about him. Talk to me. Talk to me about Jacqueline Audrey. She's super cool. And then, so that was the first movie that I watched, and I'm like, wow, it cannot get better than this. The second movie that I watched was My Own Private Idaho, which close, but in the 50s. So I watched My Own Private Idaho, which I won't lie to you, I did watch it because Keanu Reeves was involved, and I have a very soft spot for Keanu Reeves. He's very handsome. Um, so it's extremely absurd sometimes. And I was like, why are they talking like they're in Shakespeare sometimes? And it took me like a hot minute to get there. And then I realized after reading about the film, after watching it, that it's a loose adaptation of Henry IV, Part 1. Yes, I know, right? Have you seen that movie? Have you seen Dracula? It is a fun time. But yeah, so it was like extremely absurd sometimes. And I didn't really like the absurd, like Henry V plotline. But there's this one, oh my God, it's so fun, isn't it? It's so like campy and grotesque, and you're like, yes, Francis Ford Coppola. I'm still trying to talk about My Own Private Idaho. This is just me talking. It's just me and Shabonk having a conversation while the rest of you schmucks are stuck listening. So, but the parts that weren't like extremely campy and like, not campy, extremely absurd and like weird, you're like, I don't really know what's happening, were extremely beautiful and like heart-wrenching. And there's this, it's not the final shot, but it's like the next to final shot. Oh my God. One of the, like, oh my God, I loved it. And then there's a conversation that the main character, who's played by River Phoenix, and Keanu Reeves have by this campfire. And like at one point I gasped out loud because of how like deeply affecting one of the lines was. So if you get a chance, double feature Olivia and My Own Private Idaho. Very different. Both, I think, extremely good. So check those out. But that's enough of that and enough of me. So now I'll give you the goods. Oh, I have my Shakespeare shirt on today. Look. Shakespeare Company at UCLA. And then it says Exit Pursued by a Bruin. And that's a Winter's Tale reference for all of y'all out there. For anyone who isn't a Shakespeare freak, one of the most famous stage directions that's in a Shakespeare play is Exit Pursued by a Bear, which is an incredibly nebulous thing. And also Shakespeare didn't write it, but it's still really fun because Shakespeare didn't write any of the stage directions. I'm done now. I'm done, I promise. What happened yesterday? Oh my God. Oh, we're good, we're good. I thought I took the bookmark out and then went. Is that at me or it's too much? Okay, so but Isabella dies and Edgar goes to deal with that. Or Isabella's going to die and Edgar goes to deal with that, leaving Nellie and 13-year-old young Catherine at home alone. And young Catherine has never left Thrushcross Grange without her dad. And so while her dad is gone, Nellie's like, listen, you can just run around the Grange, don't do anything crazy, just like come back to me at the end of the night, tell me what you did. And so that works for a while. And then one day she doesn't come back and Nellie's like, oh fuck, God damn it. I need a nap. So Nellie like goes hoofing it all over the countryside looking for young Catherine. And of course, where does she see one of young Catherine's dogs? Outside of Wuthering Heights. So Nellie's like, okay. So Nellie goes in and is like, Catherine, we have to come home. And Catherine's like, no, I like it here. Like, these people are really fun. And Hareton is like, a woman. A woman. He's 18 and she's 13, so he shouldn't be doing that, but that's what he's doing. And so Nellie's like, yeah, I got kind of lost, but then Hareton helped me out. And anyways, yeah, but now I'm ready to go home, and servant boy, you can get my horse. And Hareton's like, I'm not your servant. Except he uses a lot more expletives. Uh, and Nellie and Catherine, who has never been yelled at before in her life, is like, excuse me. I don't know what's going on. Patricia's texting me on the side, which begs the question, why isn't she here? So Catherine freaks out, and eventually Nellie gets her home, and Nellie's like, all right, you don't tell anyone about this, okay? This didn't happen. This did not happen. But it did happen, and it happened. And now we're going to see what happens because of it happening. I have a lot of energy today. It's a little frightening, and I'll probably pass out. I can't sleep anymore. Okay, let's do it. Wuthering Heights, Volume 2, Chapter 5. Oh, very short. Oh, we might read 2 chapters today. After I just talked nonstop for 10 minutes. Okay. A letter, edged with black, announced the day of my master's return. Isabella was dead, and he wrote to bid me get mourning for his daughter and arrange a new room and other accommodations for his youthful nephew. Catherine ran wild with joy at the idea of welcoming her father back, and indulged most sanguine anticipations of the innumerable excellencies of her real cousin. The evening of their expected arrival came. Since early morning she had been busy, ordering her own small fares, and now, attired in her new black frock, poor thing, her aunt's death impressed her with no definite sorrow. She obliged me by constant worrying to walk with her down through the grounds to meet them. Linton is just 6 months younger than I am, she chattered, as we strolled leisurely over the swells and hollows of mossy turf, under shadow of the trees. How delightful it will be to have him a playfellow. Aunt Isabella sent Papa a beautiful lock of his hair. It was lighter than mine, more flaxen and quite as fine. I have it carefully preserved in a little glass box, and I've thought often what pleasure it would be to see its owner. Oh, I am happy. And Papa, dear Papa. I can't decide if it's Papa or Papa. Come, Ellen, let us run. Come, run. She ran and returned and ran again, many times before my sober footsteps reached the gate. And then she seated herself on the grassy bank beside the path and tried to wait patiently, but that was impossible. She couldn't be still a minute. How long are they? She exclaimed. I see some dust on the road. They are coming. No. When will they be here? May we not go a little way? Half a mile, Ellen, only just half a mile. Do say yes to that clump of birches at the turn. I refused staunchly, and at length her suspense was ended. The traveling carriage rolled in sight. Miss Cathy shrieked and stretched out her arms as soon as she caught her father's face, looking from the window. He descended nearly as eager as herself, and a considerable interval elapsed ere they had a thought to spare for any but themselves. While they exchanged caresses, I took a peep in to see after Linton. He was asleep in a corner, wrapped in a warm, fur-lined coat, as if it had been winter. A pale, delicate, effeminate boy, who might have been taken for my master's younger brother. So strong was the resemblance, but there was a sickly peevishness in his aspect that Edgar Linton never had. The latter saw me looking, and having shaken hands, advised me to close the door and leave him undisturbed, for the journey had fatigued him. Cathy would fain have taken one glance, but her father told her to come on, and they walked together up the park while I hastened before to prepare the servants. Good Lord. Now, darling, said Mr. Linton, addressing his daughter as they halted at the bottom of the front steps. Your cousin is not so strong or so merry as you are, and he has lost his mother, remember, a very short time since. Therefore, don't expect him to play and run about with you directly, and don't harass him much by talking. Let him be quiet this evening at least, will you? Yes, Papa, answered Catherine, but I do want to see him, and he hasn't once looked out. The carriage stopped, and the sleeper, being roused, was lifted to the ground by his uncle. This is your cousin, Kathy Linton, he said, putting their little hands together. She's fond of you already, but mind you don't grieve her by crying tonight. Try to be cheerful now. Traveling is at an end, and you have nothing to do but rest and amuse yourself as you please. Let me go to bed, then, answered the boy, shrinking from Catherine's salute, and he put his fingers to his eyes to remove incipient tears. Come, there's a good child, I whispered, leading him in. You'll make her weep too. See how sorry she is for you. I did not know whether it were sorrow for him, but his cousin put on as sad a countenance as himself, and returned to her father. All three entered and mounted to the library, where tea was laid already. I proceeded to remove Linton's cap and mantle, and placed him on a chair by the table. But he was no sooner seated than he began to cry afresh. My master inquired what was the matter. I can't sit on a chair, sobbed the boy. Go to the sofa, then, and Ellen shall bring you some tea, answered his uncle patiently. He had been greatly tired during the journey, I felt convinced, by his fretful, ailing charge. Linton slowly trailed himself off and lay down. Kathy carried a footstool and her cup to his side. At first she sat silent, but that could not last. She had resolved to make a pet of her little cousin, and she would have him to be. And she commenced stroking his curls and kissing his cheek and offering him tea in her saucer like a baby. This pleased him, for he was not much better. He dried his eyes and lightened into a faint smile. Oh, he'll do very well, said the master to me after watching them a minute. Very well if we can keep him, Ellen. The company of a child of his own age will instill new spirit into him soon, and by wishing for strength he'll gain it. Aye, if we can keep him, I mused to myself, and sore misgivings came over me that there was a slight hope of that. And then, I thought, however will that weakling live at Wuthering Heights between his father and Hareton? What playmates and instructors they'll be. Our doubts were presently decided, even earlier than I expected. I had just taken the children upstairs after tea was finished, and seen Linton asleep. He would not suffer me to leave him till that was the case. I had come down and was standing by the table in the hall, lighting a bedroom candle for Mr. Edgar, when a maidservant stepped out of the kitchen and informed me that Mr. Heathcliff's servant Joseph was at the door and wished to speak with the master. I shall ask him what he wants first, I said in considerable trepidation. A very unlikely hour to be troubling people, and the instant they have returned from a long journey. I don't think the master can see him. Joseph had advanced through the kitchen as I uttered these words, and now presented himself in the hall. He was donned in his Sunday garments, with his most sanctimonious and sourest face, and holding his hat in one hand and his stick in the other, he proceeded to clean his shoes on the mat. Good evening, Joseph, I said coldly. What business brings you here tonight? It's Master Linton I must speak to, he answered, waving me disdainfully aside. Mr. Linton is going to bed, unless you have something particular to say. I'm sure he won't hear it now, I continued. You had better sit down in there and entrust your message to me. Which is his room? Pursued the fellow, surveying the range of closed doors. I perceived he was bent on refusing my mediation, so very reluctantly I went up to the library and announced the unseasonable visitor, advising that he should be dismissed till the next day. Mr. Linton had no time to empower me to do so, for he mounted close at my heels, and pushing into the apartment, planted himself at the far side of the table, with his two fists clapped on the head of his stick, and began in an elevated tone, as if anticipating opposition. Heathcliff has sent me for his lad, and I mustn't go back without him. Edgar Linton was silent a minute. An expression of exceeding sorrow overcast his features. He would have pitied the child on his own account, but calling Isabella's hopes and fears, and anxious wishes for her son, and her commendations of him to his care, he grieved bitterly at the prospect of yielding him up, and searched in his heart how it might be avoided. No plan offered itself. The very exhibition of any desire to keep him would have rendered the claimant more peremptory. There was nothing left but to resign. I feel like there was nothing left but to resign him. I have to disagree. I do feel like there was something left to do, except for surrendering this child to Heathcliff and Hareton. However, he was not going to rouse him from sleep.
Tell Mr. Heathcliff, he answered calmly, that his son shall come to Wuthering Heights tomorrow. He is in bed and too tired to go to the distance now. You may also tell him that the mother of Linton desired him to remain under my guardianship, and at present his health is very precarious. No, said Joseph, giving a thud with his prop on the floor and assuming an authoritative air. No, that means not. Heathcliff makes no claim. Can't. Of the mother, nor you neither, but he'll have his lad, and I must take him. So now you know. I'm going to start singing, but I'm not. You shall not go tonight, answered Linton decisively. Walk downstairs at once and repeat to your master what I have said. Ellen, show him down. Go. And aiding the indignant elder with a lift by the arm, he rid the room of him and closed the door. Very well, shouted Joseph as he slowly drew off. The morn he's come himself, and thrust him out if you dare. What? Yikes, indeed. One might even affirm that yikes were on bikes. Chapter 6. To obviate the danger of this threat being fulfilled, Mr. Linton commissioned me to take the boy home early on Catherine's pony, and, said he, as we shall now have no influence over his destiny, good or bad, you must say nothing of where he has gone to my daughter. Girl, she cannot associate with him hereafter. It is better for her to remain in ignorance of his proximity, lest she should be restless and anxious to visit the Heights. Merely tell her his father sent for him suddenly, and he has been obliged to leave us. Well, how did that work out last time, Edgar? Did it work out really good? Linton was reluctant to be roused from his bed at 5 o'clock and astonished to be informed that he must prepare for further traveling. But I softened off the matter by stating that he was going to spend some time with his father, Mr. Heathcliff, who wished to see him so much he did not like to defer the pleasure till he should recover from his late journey. Oh, who is this? Oh, this is baby. My father, he cried in strange perplexity. Mama never told me I had a father. Where does he live? I'd rather stay with Uncle. He lives a little distance from the Grange, I replied, just beyond those hills. Not so far, but you may walk over here when you get hearty. And you should be glad to go home and see him. You must try to love him as you did your mother, and then he will love you. Girl, that did not work out. That did not work out. Well, why have I not heard of him before? Asked Linton. Why didn't Mamma and he live together like other people do? He had business that kept him in the north, I answered, and your mother's health required her to reside in the south. And why didn't Mamma speak to me about him? Persevered the child. She often talked of Uncle, and I learned to love him long ago. How am I to love Papa? I don't know him. Oh, all children love their parents, I said. Your mother, perhaps, thought you would want to be with him if she mentioned him often to you. Let us make haste. An early ride on such a beautiful morning is much preferable to an hour's more sleep. Is she to go with us? He demanded. The little girl I saw yesterday. Not now, replied I. Is Uncle? He continued. No, I shall be your companion there, I said. Linton sank back in his pillow and fell into a brown study. I won't go without Uncle, he cried at length. I can't tell where you mean to take me. I attempted to persuade him of the naughtiness of showing reluctance to meet his father. Still, he obstinately resisted any progress towards dressing, and I had to call for my master's assistance in coaxing him out of bed. The poor thing was finally got off with several delusive assurances that his absence should be short, that Mr. Edgar and Kathy would visit him, and other promises equally ill-founded, which I invented and reiterated at intervals throughout the way. The pure, heather-scented air and the bright sunshine and the gentle canter of Minnie relieved his despondency after a while. He began to put questions concerning his new home and its inhabitants with greater interest and liveliness. "Is Wuthering Heights as pleasant a place as Thrushcross Grange?" he inquired, turning to take a last glance into the valley, whence a light mist mounted and formed a fleecy cloud on the skirts of the blue. "Oh, it is not so buried in trees," I replied, "and it is not quite so large, but you can see the country beautifully all round, and the air is healthier for you, fresher and drier. You will perhaps think the building old and dark at first, but though it is a respectable house, the next best in the neighborhood, and you will have such nice rambles on the moors." Okay. Um, Hareton Earnshaw. That is Miss Kathy's other cousin, and so yours in a manner. We'll show you all the sweetest spots, and you can bring a book in fine weather and make a green hollow of your study. And now and then your uncle may join you in a walk. He does frequently walk out on the hills. I just have to take care of my hair. But Nellie, like, I feel like you should at least be like, listen, like, I feel like you shouldn't be telling him things that just aren't gonna happen. Like, because then this kid's gonna feel crazy. Like, at least if you're like, don't, like, his mother did not love. I don't feel like anyone is fighting hard enough for this boy or setting him up for, like, what life he's gonna live. Because it's gonna be, she's making it unnecessarily hard on him. Like, if you're like, don't worry, it doesn't hurt at all, he's gonna just feel betrayed. He's gonna be like, what the, am I crazy? Is this fine? Like, at least be like, listen, your mom was a badass, she ran off. If you need to do it, I'll protect you. That's what I want. "And what is my father like?" he asked. "Is he as young and handsome as uncle?" "He's as young," said I. Okay, this is rough. Okay. "But he has black hair. Oh my God. That's so awful. And eyes, and looks stern, and he is a taller and bigger altogether. He'll not seem to you so gentle and kind at first, perhaps because it is not his way. Still, mind you, be frank and cordial with him, and naturally he'll be fonder of you than any uncle, for you are his own." "Black eyes and hair," mused Linton. "I can't fancy him. That's such... what the fuck?" It's so outlandish my whole computer froze. YouTube said we can't stand for that, which is generous, considering. Okay. "Then I'm not like him, am I?" "Not much," I thought, surveying with regret, that's so awful, with regret the white complexion, gross, and slim frame of my companion, and his large languid eyes. His mother's eyes, save that, unless a morbid touchiness kindled them. A moment, they had not a vestige of her sparkling spirit. "How strange that he should never come to see Mamma and me," he murmured. "Has he ever seen me? If he have, I must have been a baby. I remember not a single thing about him." "Why, Master Linton," said I, 300 miles is a great distance, and 10 years seems very different in length to a grown-up person, compared with what they do to you. It is probable Mr. Heathcliff proposed going, from summer to summer, but never found a convenient opportunity, and now it is too late. Don't trouble him with questions on the subject. It will disturb him for no good." The boy was fully occupied with his own cognitions for the remainder of the ride, till we halted before the farmhouse garden gate. I watched to catch his impressions in his countenance. He surveyed the carved front and low-browed lattices, the straggling gooseberry bushes and crooked firs with solemn intentness, and then shook his head, his private feelings entirely disapproved of the exterior of his new abode, but he had a sense to postpone complaining. There might be compensation within. Before he dismounted, I went and opened the door. It was 6:30. The family had just finished breakfast. The servant was clearing and wiping down the table. Joseph stood by his master's chair telling some tale concerning a lame horse, and Hareton was preparing for the hayfield. "Hello, Nellie," cried Mr. Heathcliff when he saw me. "I feared I should have I should have to come down and fetch my property myself. You've brought it, have you? Let us see what we can make of it. He got up and strode to the door. Hareton and Joseph followed in gaping curiosity. Poor Linton ran a frightened eye over the faces of the three. Surely, said Joseph, after a grave inspection, he's swapped with your master, and yon's his lass. Oh my God. Heathcliff, having stared his son into an ague of confusion, uttered a scornful laugh. God, what a beauty! What a lovely, charming thing, he exclaimed. Haven't they reared it on snails and sour milk, Nelly? Oh, damn my soul! But that's worse than I expected, and the devil knows I was not sanguine. I bid the trembling and bewildered child get down and enter. He did not thoroughly comprehend the meaning of his father's speech, or whether it were intended for him. Indeed, he was not yet certain that the grim, sneering stranger was his father, but he clung to me with growing trepidation, and on Mr. Heathcliff's taking a seat and bidding him come hither, he hid his face on my shoulder and wept. I do not blame him. Tut, tut, said Heathcliff, stretching out a hand and dragging him roughly between his knees, and then holding up his head by the chin. None of that nonsense. We're not going to hurt thee, Linton. Isn't that thy name? Thou art thy mother's child entirely. Where is my share in thee, pulling chicken? He took off the boy's cap and pushed back his thick flaxen curls, felt his tender arms and his small fingers, during which examination Linton ceased crying and lifted his great blue eyes to inspect the inspector. Do you know me? Asked Heathcliff, having satisfied himself that the limbs were all equally frail and feeble. Oh no, baby boy. No, said Linton with a gaze of vacant fear. You've heard of me, I dare say. No, he replied again. No? What a shame of your mother, never to waken your filial regard for me. You are my son, then, I'll tell you, and your mother was a wicked slut to leave you in ignorance of the sort of father you possessed. Now don't wince and color up. Wow, this is rough. Just in general. Though it is something to see you have not white blood, be a good lad, and I'll do for you. Nelly, if you be tired, you may sit down. If not, get home again. I guess you'll report what you hear and see to the cipher at the Grange, and this thing won't be settled while you linger about. Well, replied I hope you'll be kind to the boy, Mr. Heathcliff, or you'll not keep him long, and he's all you have akin in the wide world that you will ever know. Remember. I'll be very kind to him, you needn't fear, he said, laughing. Only nobody must be kind to him. Oh, shit. That I screwed up the line, but also it's my reaction is, oh, shit. Only nobody else must be kind to him. I'm jealous of monopolizing his affection. And to begin my kindness, Joseph, bring the lad some breakfast. Food is a human right, it's not a kindness. Hareton, you infernal calf, be gone to your work. Yes, Nell, he added when they were parted. My son is a prospective owner of your place, and I should not wish him to die till I was certain of being his successor. Oh, no. Besides, he's mine, and I want the triumph of seeing my descendant fairly lord of their estates, my child hiring their children, to till their father's lands for wages. That is the sole consideration which can make me endure the whelp. Oh my God. I despise him for himself and hate him for the memories he revives. This could have been in your house for 3 minutes. But that consideration is sufficient. He's as safe with me and shall be tended as carefully as your master tends his own. I have a room upstairs furnished for him in handsome style. I've engaged a tutor also to come 3 times a week in 20 miles distance, to teach him what he pleases to learn. I've ordered Hareton to obey him, and in fact I've arranged everything from a view to preserve the superior and the gentleman in him above his associates. I do regret, however, that he so little deserves the trouble. If I wished any blessing in the world, it was to find him a worthy object of pride, and I'm bitterly disappointed with the whey-faced, whining wretch. Oh boy.
boy. Yeah, boy. While he was speaking, Joseph returned, bearing a basin of milk porridge, and placed it before Linton. He stirred round the homely mess with a look of aversion, and affirmed he could not eat it. I saw the old man's servant shared largely in his master's scorn of the child, though he was compelled to retain the sentiment in his heart, because Heathcliff plainly meant his underlings to hold him in honour. "Cannot eat it," repeated he, peering in Linton's face, and said, "This is Joseph," and subduing his voice to a whisper for fear of being overheard. "But Master Hareton never ate nothing, naught else, when he were a little one. And what were good enough for him's good enough for you, I rather think." "I shan't eat it," answered Linton snappishly. "Take it away." Joseph snatched up the food indignantly and brought it to us. "Is there aught ails the victuals?" he asked, thrusting the tray under Heathcliff's nose. "What should ail them? What should ail them?" he said. "What?" answered Joseph. "Yon dainty chap says he cannot eat him, but I guess it's right. His mother were just so. We were almost too mucky to sow the corn for making her bread." "Don't mention his mother to me," said the master angrily. "Get him something that he can eat, that's all. What is his usual food, Nellie?" I suggested boiled milk or tea, and the housekeeper received instructions to prepare some. Come, I reflected his father's selfishness may contribute to his comfort. He perceives his delicate constitution and the necessity of treating him tolerably. I'll console Mr. Edgar by acquainting him with the turn of Heathcliff's humour has taken. When we say that his humour has turned? Having no excuse for lingering longer, I slipped out while Linton was engaged in timidly rebuffing the advances of a friendly sheepdog. But he was too much on alert to be cheated. As I closed the door, I heard a cry and the frantic repetition of the words, "Oh no!" That wasn't the words, but I'm just upset about reading them. Yeah. "Don't leave me. I'll not stay here. I'll not stay here." Then the latch was raised and fell. They did not suffer him to come forth. I mounted Minnie and urged her to trot, and so my brief guardianship ended. Woof. More just this house is cursed. Cursed with a capital C. Ooh, big boy. Oh, very big. Let's see how this goes. All right. I threw it on my bed and it. Wuthering Yikes. That's what I'm going to call it. I just tossed it. What was that? Did we just? Yes. Okay, we're good. We're good. Okay. I tossed it on my bed and it said, "No thanks," and jumped off. Which, you know what? I respect. Okay. I'm going to log off for today. Thank you, as always, for coming to talk to me. I was going to disturb my cat for you, but she's sleeping very peacefully, so I won't. Okay. Thank you for coming and tuning in today. It is, as always, the highlight of my day. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Okie dokie, artichokes. See you later, alligators. After a while, crocodiles.